I wonder if you're struggling in these days. Has life been difficult during this period of lockdown? Yes, we are beginning to as it were, come out of lockdown, but for many people the last 4 months have been particularly difficult. Lives have been turned upside down. I'd want to say, though, that if we have a living faith in Jesus Christ, then we'll never face a situation which is beyond God's grace. Can I say that again? If we have a living faith in Jesus Christ, then we'll never face a situation which is beyond God's grace. That's clear from Paul's words in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. We read there, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." Where sin abounds, His grace will always much more abound. When we are weak, then He is strong. When we are empty, then He is full. When we have no resources left of our own, then His divine resources haven't even begun to be depleted. When we can't, then God can. And so the truth is that whatever we may be going through right now, His grace is sufficient for us. And whatever we might go through tomorrow, or next month, or next year, or many years from now, His grace will be sufficient then too. And so I believe that God's grace is sufficient to deal with all the problems which have come to us as a result of COVID-19. Problems concerning work, shopping, finances, schooling, meeting up with family and friends. The list is endless. But God's grace is sufficient to deal with difficult memories, as well as wounds and failures. His grace is sufficient for someone having to raise difficult children on their own, for those who have to care for others, for the person who has been disowned by their own family. It's sufficient to deal with having to be on your own, with having to deal with difficult family members, with having to cope with difficulties about which only God knows, even for the person who is struggling to live in a care home. Surely, though, we need to know this truth and keep speaking this truth to remind ourselves and those around us of the reality of this biblical truth. If we are trusting in Jesus Christ, if we have come to a living faith in Him, then His grace is sufficient for us. As the old hymn says, He giveth more grace when the burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength when labours increase. To added affliction He addeth more mercy. To multiplied trials His multiplied peace. When we have exhausted our store of endurance, when our strength has failed ere the day is half done, when we reach the end of our hoarded treasures, our Father's full giving is only begun. His love has no limit, His grace has no measure, no power, no boundary known to men. For out of His infinite riches in Jesus, He giveth and giveth and giveth again. If there's a situation in your life which feels beyond the reach of God's grace, I pray that you can console your heart with the truth that God's grace is sufficient for you. Do trust in Him. Give your life to Him as you depend on his resources and not on your own. Thank you for joining with me. May you know the blessing of the living God.